flip-flop.
Okay, and move in, like squinching. Everybody squinching.
If I had it my way, yes.
Yeah, it's good.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Yes, we're short, but the men are tall.
Testing. Can you hear me? Here we go. Hello?
Josh is here.
Testing.
Hey, Josh.
Hey, Josh.
Josh.
I'm looking forward to seeing what you write, Josh.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you all for being here. First, I'd like to let you know to the press, if you are not on our press list, I hope that you will see Rachel and make sure she gets your information so that we get you on our email blast for our press release after this press conference. So first, I'd like to thank you. I'm Delegate Kathy Shalega, and I'd like to thank all of you for being here for this momentous kickoff of the Maryland State Freedom Caucus. We are honored to be joined today by some dignitaries. First, I'll turn it over to Congressman Andy Harris.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to chair the House Freedom Caucus in Washington. Obviously, the House Freedom Caucus in Washington is where the idea of forming a State Freedom Caucus coalition began. And, we were ahead of our times. We're the group that in Washington for the past 12 years has been talking about fiscal responsibility, which is probably the number one thing that, and of course the federal government. But in fact, what you need is you need to stop blaming other people. The bottom line is the blame is pretty clear, how the state and the federal government got into their mess. Just as an example, Governor Moore, I guess I guess he's probably in the office now. The fault he found with how Maryland got into its fiscal crisis is always anybody but the Maryland General Assembly, which has been spending its way. First of all, he points, and I'll quote because I don't want to misquote it. The first storm is a fiscal crisis nearly a decade in the making. Under the former administration, state spending increased by 70% in the 7 years before he took office. I want to remind the governor that the legislature has the entire ability to cut the budget.
Right.
Let me rephrase that. The General Assembly could have taken a fiscally responsible course, but they didn't. And now the blame is on Governor Hogan. That's pretty astounding. But it goes on. It says there's actually a second storm. And again, I want to quote this exactly. The second storm is a stark new policy direction from the Trump-Vance administration that threatens to disrupt Maryland's economy. Oh yeah, that would be to control federal spending. Vance administration, and long coming, when we have a $2 trillion deficit, and Wall Street is sending a clear signal that this fiscal irresponsibility can no longer be tolerated. So it's about time that Maryland has a group where the line is the way you save your freedom is you limit the size and scope of government interfering in decisions of individuals who can help to grow the economy.
Amen.
I did leave one other thing the governor mentioned tomorrow, and again, he didn't reveal it completely in this morning's op-ed, is that he will be raising taxes on some group of Marylanders. Because again, that's what Democrats do. They raise taxes, and it will be no exception tomorrow. You need a group that pushes back. The hardworking men and women of this state and this country. In this country, those who elected President Trump president believe the time of taking money from citizens to expand the scope and size of government has to come to an end. And again, that's one of the major objectives that we had in the House Freedom Caucus and continue to have, and which I'm sure will be carried on by the Maryland State Freedom Caucus. With that, yield back.
Thank you, Congressman Harris. Next, we're joined by Governor Bob Ehrlich.
Geez, I feel like I've seen this movie before. I'm a late invite here. I just appreciate, and Kendall's here with me as well. And yeah, you want to wave again there? Okay. I've gotten to know some of these members over the past few years. As many of you know, and certainly the media knows, we've really focused on Washington, our lives, our careers over the past decade or so. But over the course of the last certainly 5, 6, 7 years of certainly the members behind me, other members of the General Assembly have asked us to do events. We've been happy to do it. So we've gotten to know this group. And one thing I just want to say today is the folks behind me, and others, but certainly the folks behind me are here for the right reason. There's a lot of ego in politics. There's a lot of all me. But in difficult times, as Congressman Harris said, these are difficult times. You know the numbers. The numbers are real. The challenges are real. So you want leadership. You just want people to do press conferences and press releases and how great I am, all that easy stuff, all that popularity contest stuff. This is $3 billion is real, even in Washington, by the way. Well, not really. But, so I just want to applaud the folks behind me. In difficult times, people are challenged, and that means leaders emerge. And folks behind me are clearly leaders that are emerging in Maryland today. I'm very proud to lend my voice and Kendall's voice, the Ehrlich voice, to this group, and just let them know that we wish them well in the challenging days ahead. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Governor Ehrlich. This would not be possible without the support of the State Freedom Caucus Network, and we're honored to be joined today by Andy Roth.
Thank you, everybody. I'm president of the State Freedom Caucus Network. Our mission is very simple. With the help and leadership of Chairman Harris, my goal is to help conservative state lawmakers around the country create their own State Freedom Caucus. And so we started 3 years ago with the Georgia Freedom Caucus, then South Carolina, South Dakota, Illinois, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Louisiana, Missouri, Oklahoma, and now Maryland is the 13th State Freedom Caucus in our network. So I'm absolutely thrilled to be here today. The governor said something very important just now about how these are difficult times. The men and women behind me know exactly what time it is in America, and they're ready to fight. And when I got to first have discussions with Matt and Kathy about helping put together a Maryland Freedom Caucus, I couldn't have been more thrilled to lend our support. So I am thrilled today that this is the start of something very, very big for the state of Maryland, and I couldn't be happier to be here with the Patriots behind me. And so it is the honor and the privilege to introduce your first chairman of the Maryland Freedom Caucus, Matt Morgan.
Yeah, Matt. Yay!
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming out here today. And Governor, thank you for coming here. Your advice has been great for us. I mean, thank you so much. And honestly, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Andy Harris. Woo! So
Yeah.
his advice and tutelage has been awesome. So thank you, Andy. And then I want to thank the State Freedom Caucus, Andy Roth. Thank you. For taking an interest in us, helping us, giving us guidance and advice, and organizing our mission. As Andy mentioned, this will be the 13th Maryland 13th State Freedom Caucus. The Maryland chapter is, and that's a pretty important number with a lot of symbolism. Maryland was one of the 13th original colonies.
That's right.
And I tell you the truth, we need to get back to the values, the principles, and the ideas that set that revolution. And it's about it. We're affiliating with the State Freedom Caucus Network because we believe Maryland's worth saving. We're affiliating with them because I think they can help us do our jobs better and help us represent our citizens. And we believe there's been a void in conservative leadership in this state for quite some time. And we're going to fill that void. Now, don't get me wrong. We have no delusion about where we live. The state of Maryland's tough. It's a blue state. But if you look at the recent election results, every county in the state of Maryland trended more red. Donald Trump won almost 1 million votes in this state. That is a lot of families voting for him. That's a lot of families and taxpayers voting for that agenda. And I think their agenda and their values and principles deserve to be heard. So over the next week, we're going to release our agenda. And the legislative proposals that we're submitting, I think they're smartly written. And many of our marquee bills are poll-driven. Just about all our marquee bills poll at 70 to 80% range. So this isn't a red agenda, blue agenda. This is an American agenda that's based on common sense. And we're going to continue to push for Maryland to be safer, freer, and more prosperous. So, little message for the media. Thank you guys for showing up today. Absolutely. We want to have a warm relationship with you. So I'm going to talk directly to you for a minute. Look, what we have planned for this session is an unprecedented amount of transparency. Help us help you. We want you to help us get a message out of just being American. And with that, I will turn it over to our whip, Delegate Naraki, who's our AKA press secretary, and he would be happy to answer your questions. Thank you all so much for coming out today.
Hey everybody, happy to answer any questions that might be out there. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit.
Delegate,
Yeah, McKenzie.
So Delegate Morgan said that affiliating yourselves with the state network of the Freedom Caucus will help you do your jobs better. What exactly does the medical situation that you're dealing with in the General Assembly?
Sure. So I think it helps us amplify the message, first of all, but I think it also gives us a network of legislators around the country and resources that we can tap. A lot of the bills, for instance, that we're bringing forward are pieces of model legislation that have already been passed in other states. So they've already ran the traps on what some of the difficulties might be inside of those pieces of legislation so that we can bring pieces of work that are ready for prime time right here to Maryland from day one. So we don't have to kind of do all that extra legwork. We're ready to go day one.
And if I could, Congressman Harris, can you explain concerns with the incoming Trump administration and what it means for Maryland? Do you see this as a direct line of communication or a direct working relationship with those in this building across the street?
Look, the point is that like the federal government, this state government is in a fiscal morass. I mean, the bottom line is they have to solve their spending problems. And the solutions are pretty similar. You have to start growing the economy. And in Maryland, ask any business owner, you know, when you have the regulatory burden that you have in this state, then you have a continuing clamoring, for instance, to increase the minimum wage, which of course will drive businesses into surrounding states. You have a constant drumbeat of anti-business policy coming out of the General Assembly. And the sooner people realize that that's what's holding Maryland back, the better. Now, I'll give the governor credit. In his op-ed this morning, he actually talked about having to restore the economy in Maryland. But if that economy depends upon federal jobs coming out of Washington, that isn't going to last that long. The bottom line is that the federal government has been, Mr. Trump has been tasked with solving the fiscal problems and reducing the size and scope of the federal government, especially by eliminating burdensome regulations. And as I tell people, if you eliminate regulations, you don't need the regulators. And is that solution could work in Maryland just like it works in the federal government.
Yes. Yes.
Delegate Roth or Congressman Harris, does your caucus's federal connections mean that you could potentially use federal funding for Maryland as leverage to pursue state priorities?
Well, I certainly can't speak to the federal side. The congressman can speak to that more. But look, I hope that the federal government gets very serious about some of the things that the state of Maryland is doing. And I think all of us up here would agree. For instance, we are way out of step of where the American public is and where Marylanders are with respect to immigration policy. There's no way that we should be letting pedophiles, rapists, and violent offenders back on the streets, and many counties are in Maryland, after they're already incarcerated in different counties. So I hope that the federal government takes a very serious look at those kinds of things, but I can certainly let the congressman speak from the federal side.
I think that's true. I think after having discussions with incoming members of the Trump administration, they're not going to look favorably upon jurisdictions that, with one hand, ask for federal dollars, and then with the other hand, pass it out to illegal immigrants, including protecting them from the reach of federal law, including deportation law. The fact of the matter is we have 1.5 million people with active deportation orders in the United States. Now, I would hope that the states, who all belong to the federal government, would participate with the federal government in seeing that those federal deportation orders, because remember, the Constitution applies immigration policy exclusively to the federal government. And all the states have agreed to the Constitution. The fact of the matter is that when a jurisdiction in Maryland says we're not going to cooperate with deportation policies, why, with the other hand, are they reaching out for federal benefits? And I think what you're going to see is you're going to see As part of our efforts to control federal spending, one of the first things we're going to do is go to those jurisdictions that don't cooperate with the federal government and attempt to achieve savings there.
Delegate Rocky, do you think there are some Democrats in the State House that you might be able to pick off to maybe slide some of your agenda through there? Do you think there's an appetite for some of them who want to cut spending, who see some of the vision that you folks are proposing?
Sure, absolutely. There's definitely an appetite. Look, we polled many of our bills already. I can tell you, say some of the bills that we're going to bring forward with respect to immigration. Not only that, for spending, we have to. That's not a Democrat or Republican issue. Maryland requires by our Constitution that we have to have a balanced budget. So we've got to figure this out. There's no print more money like they can in Washington. We have to get this done here now.
I got a question for you. Your group is small, and how do you grow that group where you have, a state that's purple, and how do you convince people it's time to move in a different direction?
Sure. I think the group is small, just like the House Freedom Caucus was when it originally started 12 years ago, right? You start out with a core group of people that are in business. I'm a small business owner. I get more customers by demonstrating success. It's the same way here. You demonstrate success either legislatively or by pushing an agenda forward in the media or whatever the case might be, however you're defining success.
We'll take one more.
How would you characterize your relationship with the broader House Republican caucus?
Sure. So look, we're Americans first, we're Marylanders second, we're Republicans third, right? And our agenda is for the American public and Marylanders, period. And whether that means working with Republicans or Democrats, whoever that is, to push our agenda forward, that's what we'll do, and that's where we're at with the other Republicans inside of our caucus.
We'd like to invite all of the media to have individual interviews. We have a media blitz going on this week. Please reach out to Rachel in our office to set something up. We would love to speak more in depth about our agenda and our dreams and aspirations for the great state of Maryland. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.